Hey everybody, this is Drew, and this is a supplemental video to the video that was put out by English with Lucy, where she had Emma from Australia and Vanessa from the United States, specifically from North Carolina, which is where I was raised. And the reason why I say supplemental, this isn't correcting anybody or saying anybody's wrong. It's just a few extra terms that I have learned growing up in eastern North Carolina, living in Virginia and South Carolina, in Texas and in Idaho. So just kind of add a few more terms that I'm sure that you can't get into in a video. Tons of different areas in the UK, Australia, and the United States. We all have different dialects, different colloquialisms. And so here are a few colloquialisms that I have picked up in my years living around the United States and also having friends from around the U.S. Went to school out in Idaho, had friends from Washington, Utah, California, Texas, the Midwest, the Northeast, New England, all over the U.S., and even in England and Australia and Canada. So here are a few terms that are supplemental to the ones that you guys talked about in your video about the different dialects and how things are pronounced. So this isn't in the same order as what y'all did. So the first one is forest. I grew up in a pretty rural area, and we use both forest and the woods. You know, we're going hiking in the woods. That also heard that quite a bit in Idaho and Utah. We go hiking in the woods, go to the forest, big massive area. I live in the forest or live in the woods. Heard that a lot, living in the woods in eastern North Carolina. And in Idaho, and I believe also up in Western Virginia. Next one was for truck. I guess growing up where my dad worked with a lot of truckers, I learned quite a few different terms. So big truck, tractor trailer, semi. I use those a lot growing up. But also 18-wheeler, because there's 18 wheels on most of those big rigs. Big rig. I'm trying to think of any other. Nah, unless you want to get into specifics like Mack truck, Freightliner, International. Sometimes people do get that specific. Yep. So that's kind of with truck or lorry. Okay, for Offsite Store or Bottle-O, an ABC store. Now I grew up in North Carolina, where Vanessa is from. And we use the term ABC store a lot. Used it in South Carolina and in Virginia. Yet in Texas, it's also called a package store. I think also up in Connecticut and Massachusetts, they call it a pack, or a term which can be controversial in their vernacular, packy. I know that can be a bad term in different parts of the world. I think in doing a little bit of research, because I'm like, I remember there are a few other ones. In Utah, then they call it a package agency, and there might be one or two more. Liquor store. We also call it liquor store. And I think here in Texas they use both package store and liquor store. So it just depends. So the next one, now I guess where I'm from, we have like 100 different terms for everything sometimes, especially in North Carolina, over in the Raleigh-Durham area. It's almost like the crossroads of the East. You have a lot of interstates that go up and down the eastern seaboard, and they come through like Raleigh, Durham, Charlotte, Rocky Mount. So there's a lot of interstate commerce from different parts of the country that go through those areas. So we picked up highway, interstate. There's also freeway, and there's also parkway, because there's the Grand Parkway that goes around Houston. Where I was at in North Carolina, I remember using the term 4-lane for the highway. I don't know if many people use that. I just remember growing up using the term 4-lane instead of just highway or interstate, because interstate is kind of specific. You have interstates, you have highways, which could be a 4-lane or a 2-lane. 4-lane, of course, 4-lane's pretty standard. Parkway, kind of, I don't know how specific that is, but we have parkways, and we also have freeways as well. I know there's a few freeways around here in Texas. I also remember out in Idaho, they would call the interstates freeways as well. And for me, there were so many, it was so specific what you called each one that I had to get used to the vernacular of different areas. Next one, gas station. Now, in the U.S., in different parts of the U.S., they have different terms, and I'm not going to get them all. So you have gas station, convenience store, C-store, and I think there's one other one. It's going to come to me later on. I know it is when I press stop. Yeah, those are the three that I remember. And also in eastern North Carolina, there's a unique one called a brew-through. Now, there's also beverage barns here in Texas. Now, a brew-through in eastern North Carolina, you could buy beer, not really hard liquor, probably get wine. Yeah, it is also a convenience store, and instead of pulling up into the parking lot, you would drive into it, and somebody within the, I guess, it's almost like a barn type thing, a Quonset hut, that's Canadian, where you just pull in, people come up and say, hey, what you want? You tell them, they go grab it for you, and they ring you up when you leave at the end of the Quonset hut. So that's a brew-through. Now, around here, beverage barn isn't a brew-through. A beverage barn is, I don't even know if, I know beverage barn is one place that you can buy it at. You can just drive in and get your alcohol there. So those are a couple different terms. So for supermarket, so I grew up calling them supermarkets, grocery stores, food store, go to the food store. We also had a lot of twos that don't need to be added in. And is there another one? I guess you can call like warehouse, a warehouse type place like a BJ's or a Costco. You just kind of call those by their names. I guess what would you call those? It's like a members only grocery store type thing. Big, huge warehouse where you could go buy stuff. So those are a few that I remember. Also with flip-flops, I kind of grew up knowing that they were thongs. My aunt from Oklahoma would call them thongs when I was a young kid. And also some people from Virginia who were from out west, I think, I want to say Oregon and Utah would call them thongs as well. So for me growing up, that wasn't such a foreign concept. I know now in the United States, I don't know how many people really know that flip-flops were once called thongs. So this is a supplemental video, just adding a few extra words to the vernacular. Oh, one thing I forgot. Emma talked about trolley for a grocery cart. Now, I grew up calling them grocery carts. In South Carolina, they're called buggies. And I believe in part, I want to say Mississippi, they're called pokes. It's either, I think poke, yeah. So around here in Texas and in the upstate, the western part of South Carolina, they're called buggies. And I believe western North Carolina may call them pokes. I know they're called pokes somewhere in the South. But yeah, shopping cart, grocery cart. So that's what we call them. And I've also heard them called trolleys as well. So that's kind of ends this supplemental video for your awesome video. Awesome job, y'all. On put out by English with Lucy.